Good morning, everyone. It's Monday, July 20th. From the San Antonio Express News, my name is Luis Vasquez, and this is your Express Briefing. All of the stories you need to know to start your day.
You can expect mostly sunny skies and a high of 98.
Despite insistent appeals to wear masks and practice social distancing, the novel coronavirus maintained its grip on San Antonio as officials reported 6 more deaths and 2,202 new cases on Sunday. Bexar County's death toll since the start of the pandemic now stands at 257. A state lawmaker is pressing the Texas Department of Criminal Justice for answers after more than 500 inmates tested positive for COVID-19 at the Dominguez State Jail on the southwest side. Globally, the World Health Organization said that 259,848 new infections were reported Saturday, its highest one-day tally yet. India, which has now confirmed more than 1 million infections, on Sunday reported a 24-hour record of 38,902 new cases. And now, let's move on to the top stories of the day. You can find links to all these articles in the episode's description. As the coronavirus pandemic grinds on, funeral homes are having to deal with an influx of corpses and distraught families trying to properly grieve for their loved ones in the time of COVID-19. Some funeral home directors say their business has doubled and even tripled, especially in the last 2 weeks. Guadalupe Delgado, who has owned Delgado Funeral Home on the west side for 25 years, said, quote, "Last Monday, we had 30 families here throughout the day for funerals, cremations, to set up future funerals. It's been extremely stressful, but we're getting through it." You can read more about how local funeral homes are adjusting their practices to store more bodies and keep mourners safe in Melissa Fletcher Stolchi's latest story. As children begin their 5th month of isolation amid a surge of coronavirus cases and deaths, and as the rules and risks of reopening schools keep changing, school districts are scrambling to accommodate teachers and students with resources for any given scenario. When schools shut down in March, districts only had 1 week or 2 to devise and implement remote learning. In San Antonio and across the country, many saw students fall through the cracks, their work incomplete, and their families unresponsive. Now, as the fall semester approaches, schools and families are balancing public health and safety against the negative effects of social distance learning on a child development. There are no good answers, but Alia Malik, Sylvia Foster Frau, and Krista Tarava sift through the options that range from bad to awful for San Antonio parents and educators. Gregory Garrett chases ghosts. For 10 years, the historian with a passion for researching Texas baseball has sought out the forgotten Grand Slam hitters, fastball pitchers, and swift outfielders, as well as the ball fields they once graced. Through oral history interviews and researching old newspaper articles, Garrett has mapped out once thriving sites that have disappeared across San Antonio. Vincent T. Davis explores some of those sites in the latest entry to our San Antonio Stories series. Bexar County commissioners are kind of like Supreme Court justices. Once they attain their position, they generally get to hold it for as long as they'd like. Until last Tuesday, it had been 16 years since a county commissioner was voted out of office. The last time it happened, Sergio Chico Rodriguez knocked off Robert Tejeda in a Southside grudge match. On Tuesday, Rodriguez experienced what it feels like to be on the other end of an upset as political newcomer Rebecca Clay-Flores routed the veteran commissioner by nearly 24 percentage points in the Precinct 1 Democratic runoff. In doing so, she almost guaranteed that she will become the first woman of color ever to serve on the commissioner's court. Columnist Gilbert Garcia has more. To keep our readers up to date on the path of COVID-19, the Express News built a dashboard of interactive graphics showing the spread of the virus in the San Antonio area, in Texas as a whole, and across the United States. You can find a link to the dashboard in this episode's description. Next up are your need-to-know headlines. You can find all of these headlines and more inside your Express News subscription. A retired police officer and 2 retired Army officers on a motorcycle ride in the Texas Hill Country were killed Saturday when an alleged drunk driver crashed into them. A teachers' union motorcade moved through the Harlandale Independent School District on Sunday, pushing for remote learning this fall and no standardized testing as long as COVID-19 poses a threat. As state leaders across the country struggle to combat an evolving pandemic on immense public stages, Texas Governor Greg Abbott has mostly retreated, delivering his message in short bursts on local TV networks. On Saturday, a small group of protesters joined the Jericho March to protest discrimination, negligence, and violence they say was linked to the local police department and the Bexar County Jail. A 37-year-old woman jailed on drug charges is dead after an apparent suicide, the Bexar County Sheriff's Office said on Sunday. Attacks on Dr. Anthony Fauci are attacks on the truth. The Express News editorial board writes, adding, quote, "Fauci is merely relaying the truth, as best we know it in the present moment, to the American people." The median CEO in Texas made 70 times the median worker at his or her company, but the top 10 highest paid CEOs in the state made at least 100 times the median worker at his company. All of this according to S&P Global Market Intelligence research. Sports columnist Mike Finger writes, quote, "Progress can't stop with names, whether they're tributes to Confederate soldiers on high school sports uniforms, or memorials to bigot professors on college buildings, or racial slurs on NFL company letterhead." Spurs coach Gregg Popovich remembered civil rights icon John Lewis as the leader with a rare combination of courage and humility who pushed America to live up to its promises. This week in history, on July 24th, 1999, the Express News reported about labor organizer Emma Tenayuca, who passed away at the age of 82. Quote, "The once powerful orator who roused large crowds, survived perhaps the most violent riot in the city's history, and won national recognition as a champion for the poor and hero of the voiceless, had suffered from advanced Alzheimer's disease in recent years. Tenayuca still remains a prominent figure in the history of San Antonio and continues to inspire people to seek justice." A link to that July 24th, 1999 article is in this episode's description. It's known as the Great Little Train Robbery, when the Brackenridge Eagle, the miniature train ride, was held up by two Fort Sam Houston soldiers in 1970. It was said to be the first train robbery since 1923. They shook down the passengers, most of whom were tourists who thought it was part of the ride, for cash and jewelry. They were soon caught and convicted. Now, 50 years later, the San Antonio Zoo reenacted the robbery as a fundraiser. And now the fun stuff. Tired of watching your kids sitting around the house endlessly playing video games? Try heading outside and playing a classic backyard game. Richard Marini has your guide to playing croquet, badminton, bocce, cornhole, and horseshoes. Ember's wood-fire kitchen and tap leaves pizza mostly on the sideline. Read Mike Sutter's review in his 52 Weeks of Pizza series. In college football news, Nick Moyle has the list of Longhorns named to preseason awards watch lists. Lighten up your cocktails this summer with sparkling water, seltzers, and soda. Paul Stephen has more. Spurs' Lonnie Walker IV hopes to show off more than the new do. Jeff McDonald has more on that story. And that's all for today. This was your Express Briefing. My name is Luis Vasquez. Please consider becoming an Express News subscriber to get in-depth coverage on all the stories you heard today. Also, be sure to rate and review this podcast inside of your Apple Podcast app, as it really helps the show. Have a wonderful start of the week, everyone.